You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get early every Tuesday over at patreon.com/thunderquack, just like our Patreon producers Brian Murawski and JJ Samuel do, or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Kunkin. And this is our spooky podcast.
Okay, so you're just gonna go ahead. You're gonna make the promise right up front that it's a spooky podcast.
I'm gonna set everybody up for devastation, disappointment as you get into it. Happy Halloween!
Everybody should know from last week that you don't like scary movies.
I know.
We're gonna talk about like the one scary movie that I think you love.
I know. I'm very excited.
Later on the podcast. So, I guess this is officially our Halloween podcast, as the general release will be on Friday the 30th, right? Mm-hmm. It's also our last one before The Mandalorian comes back, so
ooh, yeah.
Expect a lot of Mandalorian chatter over the next few weeks as that ramps up and exciting things hopefully happen on that. Let's talk about a couple of pieces of news before we get into talking about scary movies. The first one being that Oscar Isaac is in talks to play the character Moon Knight on a Disney Plus MCU series. So
I saw this news story come out, but I don't know what that character is. And so, if you could just walk me through it. I did not.
Moon Knight is like, he's a bit of an anti-hero type character. He, I'm not a huge Moon Knight buff, so like I kind of like tangentially know some stuff about him, but he's kind of he wears like a white outfit, like he wears like all white with a moon on his chest and sort of like a cloak with a hood, right? And he throws some sort of knives, I think shaped like moons, traditionally, but I think maybe in newer stuff a little bit more practical.
Moon knives.
And I don't know that he necessarily has any powers. I don't think that he does. I think he's kind of a Batman-esque character of like he's just trained and is a vigilante and that sort of thing. He's a little bit more on the fringes of the Marvel universe. He's not one of the guys that you would consider an Avenger. He's more in like the Daredevil, Iron Fist sort of street level hero. So he'd be perfect for a Disney Plus series. Now, the way that Disney Plus is doing things is very different from the way that Netflix did things with Daredevil and Iron Fist and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and the Punisher, I guess. Moon Knight will probably, if this is actually happening, we don't really have any confirmation, but we don't have confirmation on really anything, because even we got that news that they cast Miss Marvel.
I didn't see.
But that hasn't been announced, right?
Oh.
Like that's like it was like Deadline or Hollywood Reporter or something, or Variety that broke that news. So it's like it's as good as announced, but it hasn't been officially announced. And so there's actually like 3 or 4 things that are like that that haven't actually been announced yet, but we know a little bit about them. And this seems to be one of them. And it's kind of pointing towards the idea that we're gonna get some sort of a major announcement soon of like all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like here's a bunch of the things that we're doing. I bet you anything. One of the things that's happening is that Disney is gearing up and building more of the volume setups like they do The Mandalorian on, which is the sound stage where they've got the LED screen so that they can basically, I mean, it's perfect for Star Wars because you can replicate any setting, right? And there's a series on Disney Plus called Disney Gallery The Mandalorian where they go into the details on the making of the show, and one of the episodes is all about the volume, and they show you that they build like set extensions and stuff off of this. Cool. But these LED screens mean that you can go anywhere, and like visually you can go anywhere, be anywhere, do anything, and it's right there. You don't have to do post effects. So they're basically using video game engines to project the angle that the camera would see onto the walls, onto these LED walls. And I think before COVID, that was like, oh, cool, perfect for something like Star Wars, perfect for the genre stuff, right? For sci-fi and fantasy. I think in a post-COVID world, in a mid-COVID world, I guess that we're in, it's like, oh, cool, we can do cityscape rooftop stuff without actually having to film in a city. Like they can, like, we can use some of this technology to build essentially set extensions, and have, as opposed to with Arrow where it's like it's always the same like boring static out the window, so nothing's ever really going on out the window. Instead we can, and it's always night. We can have like a real world outside of a window, and they can be more creative with set building and stuff like that using some of this technology. The other part of it is that they can build smaller sets with Video Village and the sound team and everybody like sort of sequestered. So this is what they're doing for season 3 of Mando, where they have like the sound stage where the actors are, and then they'll have like Video Village where the director and like the ADs and whatever, right, like are all hanging out, and then sound is in a different bubble, like they're in a different room wired into the sound stage, and everybody is kind of sequestered so that it's like you're only ever in like these little pods with like 2 or 3 other people, so you can actually like come in, do your thing, you're in a bubble, you're only like so that they're cutting down on like who, like how many people come in contact with one another. And I could see them gearing up these shows with that kind of a setup in mind, going like, well, if we do this, then and I think that we're going to start to see it used on movies as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing about it on Spider-Man 3, which just started filming. So, like Disney's kind of got this market cornered because they developed the technology for, starting with Jungle Book, but then really on Lion King, Jon Favreau, like pushed it really far. Oh man, I always forget
that he's the one that did that movie.
Yeah. And then, and then he brought it over to The Mandalorian, and that's how they're able to shoot The Mandalorian. And one of the great things is that like most people don't even realize that that's how that show is shot. Like I shouldn't say no blue screens. There's very little blue screen stuff in it. Like they are in those environments, but those environments are basically VR, like not VR because it's not like they put on a headset, but like projected video game environments on LED screens. So, cool. So yeah, I think that's what we'll probably see for these MCU productions, and I think that they're gearing up to announce like, hey, we've got like 4 more of these Disney Plus series all in the works, on top of the ones that we already know about.
Nice. Well, that's cool.
So Oscar Isaac, I think that the Moon Knight one has been rumored for a long time. Like a long time. So
really?
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
been a bunch of actors that people have thrown out, but this one seems to be the one. Like this is they're kind of a like talking. Everybody's talking about it as if this is sort of a foregone conclusion. It's interesting because obviously Oscar Isaac is Poe Dameron, but he was also Apocalypse in
Right.
in X-Men Apocalypse.
Right.
So he's already been a Marvel character. He's actually also a major character in the next Spider-Verse movie. If you stuck around to the very end of the credits for the first Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah.
He's Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 2099. So, which is awesome because Spider-Man 2099 is an awesome character. Miguel O'Hara is an awesome character. And yeah, I mean, like, I got crazy excited by that. I remember when because you came with us to see Spider-Verse. I remember we were sitting through the credits and Oscar Isaac comes up in the credits, and I was like, Oscar Isaac, interesting person number one. What interesting person, man. I need to watch this movie again. And then we get to the end and you just hear his voice and he's quipping as he does, and it was like yeah, it's perfect. So yeah, so he'll have, if he's Moon Knight, he'll have 3 Marvel characters under his belt.
Wow.
So that's I don't think that's a record by any stretch. I think there are some voice actors who've got like 4 or 5, but certainly like having a live action character and having he would be, I think, possibly the only actor to span all 3 universes, right? To go to
Really?
to do the Fox stuff, to do the Disney stuff, and to do the Sony stuff. The Sony Marvel stuff, right? Because the and I mean, technically Paramount had stuff when Iron Man and the Hulk came out, but yeah, like those are kind of the 3 Marvel universes that we have going right now, right? The X-Men one is toast. Everybody knows that. New Mutants was the last one, but yeah, like he would be. I think he would. I don't know. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure he'd be the only like lead actor. Maybe there's like stunt performers or something, but yeah, then Ryan Reynolds would then have to be in Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Chris, no, because Fantastic Four is Fox. It was also Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a Sony character. He doesn't have a character in the Sony Marvel franchise. That's Spider-Man stuff.
He could soon.
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt he's going to show up in any. I don't think he's going to show up in Black Cat or Venom 2. I think that his paycheck is probably the entire cast budget for those movies at this point. He's Captain America. He's one of the most like, and he can do whatever he wants. He's not going to do those. He's not going to be like, hey, yeah, let me go back into the superhero thing as a lesser known character. No, let me start again from the beginning. No, I don't think so.
Some people like a challenge. What can I say?
That would be quite the I don't know what kind of sandwich that would be, but to go from Johnny in the Human Torch and Fantastic Four to Captain America to a side character in Venom 2 would be
an interesting career choice.
Yeah,
is what we should.
I don't think that's what Chris Evans is focused on right now.
Okay.
Also interesting stuff from last week. They released a set photo of Tom Holland in the Uncharted movie. I know that means nothing to you, Amanda.
Hey, come on. It does, because you talk about Nathan Drake to the cows come home.
Do I?
Right? That's the right
Yep,
person.
that is
Right?
the right
Okay,
character.
see, there you go. I know his name and that he wears a lot of tan.
Well, I mean, he does
Tacky.
it in that shot, yeah. So this movie, since Uncharted 2, they've been trying to make this movie, and like Uncharted 2 was was like very early in the PlayStation 3 life cycle, and we're a couple of weeks away from the PlayStation 5 coming out, and console life cycles are around 8 years. So so they've been trying to make this Uncharted movie for quite a while. And different actors have been attached and different directors. I think they've gone through like 5 different directors and like 3 different leads. At one point, Mark Wahlberg was going to be Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg will be in the Uncharted movie, but he's not Nathan. He's Victor Sullivan, who is Nate's mentor. He's the thief that teaches him everything that he knows. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like when Mark Wahlberg was attached as the lead, as Nathan Drake, it was like, please don't make this movie.
Really?
When they announced that, yeah, because that character requires nuance. He's an actual human being, as opposed to the trees, they're coming alive, you guys.
What are you making fun of?
Mark Wahlberg.
No, but from what?
The Happening.
Oh, I haven't watched that.
Yeah,
I was like, I do not understand.
The
this
trees
reference.
don't come to life, but the trees are what's
yes,
killing everybody in The Happening. Because we've been killing the planet, so the trees fight back with pollen.
Well, that sounds like a great movie.
M. Night Shyamalan's the worst. The twist in that movie is everyone has very bad allergies.
What?
Because it's pollen. God. It's like the plants start like producing something in the air that kills people.
Oh,
and nobody
weird.
Understands what's happening.
Okay, can we just talk? There's a reason why I don't like scary movies, because 9 times out of 10 they're just stupid. Like Sharknado. Yeah. What the hell is Sharknado? Even
that's not a scary movie. Sharknado is not a scary movie. It's not a horror movie. Sharknado is an action film.
Is it?
You can disagree, but you're wrong. It's an action film.
Isn't it scary?
Nobody would put Sharknado as a horror. No.
Okay, fine.
It has some gore in it of like sharks eating people, but it's not Jaws. It's not.
Okay,
it's not. It's a tornado shooting sharks at people.
Do you consider Jaws to be a horror movie?
Jaws is absolutely in the horror genre. Yeah.
See, because I just in my brain I'm kind of like sharks, same class.
Yeah. No, I understood. That's why I drew that
good.
connection.
Good.
But yeah, so like I didn't want Mark Wahlberg as Nathan Drake. That was gotcha. When that kept like faltering and switching directors and writers and stuff, I was like, good. Stay in production hell until he's too old to play the character. And thankfully, that's exactly what happened. And to the point where it's like, because I think that he might be producing it. I think he might be one of the producers. So he's just cast himself in the movie, right? But he's great. He's a perfect choice for Sully. Like that's a great character for him to play. So yeah, he's in it, but Tom Holland will be Nathan Drake, and that got me.
Do you think Nathan Drake's a good choice for Tom Holland? Like Tom Holland is a good choice for Nathan Drake?
I think we've only seen Tom Holland do a couple of things so far, and I think this will be the movie that gets the mainstream to see him and go like, oh, he's not just Peter Parker.
I mean, he's also the guy that did the umbrella dance lip sync.
Yep, he did also do the umbrella dance lip sync battle.
The best.
Yep, he did do that. And he had that Netflix movie, The Devil All the Time, just came out. I haven't watched it yet. I don't think I will. But where he plays like a less than likable character, I think, which is the polar opposite of his Peter Parker. Which his Peter Parker is just Marty McFly, right? We've talked about that before. Yeah, is that fair. He's doing a Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future impression, and that's not a slight. That's not me like turning my nose up. Like he's literally doing that. He's talked about it. Like that's the point. He's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, what if Michael J. Fox in the 80s was playing Spider-Man, but today? I mean, which is perfect, and that's exactly how it works.
That's exactly how it plays. Yeah. I like it. I like
and
it.
It's perfect because he's perfect. He's the best on-screen Spider-Man we've ever had. So, yeah, I wouldn't say skeptical, but I was like cautiously optimistic until we saw that picture of him on set. that he put out on his Instagram, and now I'm 110% behind this movie.
Nice.
110%, because he, like, the look is there, and the set behind him looks amazing. Nolan North, who played the character in the video game, he did a set visit, and he posted a picture the same day of the two of them together talking, and like, so he was on set and saw stuff, and he's talked about it and said, like, this isn't a joke, like this is Uncharted, like, this isn't a movie knockoff like some video game movies. It's not the Super Mario Brothers movie. Like, this is for real Uncharted. This is the story of Nathan Drake. This is the part of his life that we haven't seen yet. Because we've seen him as a kid, like as a teenager, and we've seen him in his mid to late 30s, but we haven't seen like his 20s. So that's the story that they're telling with this, is sort of him, his, like, kind of, I guess, like his tomb raiding coming of age story. So yeah, like, I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. If it ever comes out. I think they put a release date on it for next year, and it's like, that would be nice.
I just would like anything to come out in any near future.
The trailer for Raya the Last Dragon came out in the last week as well, and that starring Kelly Marie Tran. Now they whoever the lead actress was on it before, I think had to pull out for some reason, and so they replaced her with Kelly Marie Tran, which I think is an upgrade, because I don't remember the other person's name. But they released the trailer for that, which looks really cool.
What's it called? Raya the Dragon?
Raya and the Last Dragon.
And the Last Dragon. I feel like I heard about this a while ago.
Well, I mean, they announced it, I think, about 2 years ago, but because animation has such a, it's got such a long.
Oh, Awkwafina. That's why I think I heard about it.
Yeah, she's one of the supporting characters.
Yeah.
But they put like it's like a March release date or something on that, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are funny. Because I think at the end of the trailer, I think I was literally watching the trailer on my phone, and it gets to and I was by myself, like, I was just alone, and it gets to the end, and it goes only in theaters March 20th or something like that or whatever, and I was like, yeah, good luck with that, guys. Like, I literally said that out loud just by reflex almost, of like, this movie, we won't be in theaters in March. We're not gonna be, not in the numbers that they want. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that we're getting close to a vaccine, but
not in time for theaters to open by March.
That's 12 months. And they said at the beginning of this, it was going to be 18 months at the fastest.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll probably get it a little bit quicker than 18 months. But here's the thing about the vaccine, everybody. You're probably not getting it. And when I say you, I mean, like, the general public, healthy people are not getting the vaccine first. You know who's getting the vaccine first? People in like high risk groups and healthcare workers. They're getting the vaccine first, and then eventually it'll go out to school children who have to be in school, so they need protection, as well as teachers, and then regular old people will be able to get the vaccine. Now, by the time I think that kids and teachers in schools are getting vaccinated, I think that we'll have pretty significant herd immunity that a lot of restrictions can go away. But it would be the sort of thing of, like, you're still putting yourself at risk, so make a choice. Yeah. Right? Of, like, if you haven't had the vaccine and you go out in the world, there's a chance that you could catch this very deadly virus. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is that they're doing a lot of studies right now to determine how quickly this thing mutates, and whether or not
how useful the vaccine actually is going to be.
Yeah, or whether or not we're going to need yearly vaccines on this, and so yeah, we're not going back to normal anytime soon. Normal
went away.
Yeah,
it's now no longer a thing, and we just got to figure out what the new way of being is.
I think that that's a pessimistic way to look at it. I think that within the next 2 years, we're going to get back to being able to walk down the street without masks on, but I do think that people's habits will change. I think that decent, good human beings, when they have a cold, when they have the flu, when they have whatever, and they need to go out, they're gonna wear a mask because good, decent people have learned, oh, it's less likely that I'm gonna give this to somebody else if I'm wearing a mask. So I guess I'll do that because it's the good, decent thing to do. Now, assholes are gonna be assholes, so there's nothing you can do about that. And we've seen that in North America, and some other parts of the world, but mostly it's just the places where there's lots of white people. It's funny how that works. There's always going to be people who go, whatever, I don't need to care about other human beings. I'm the only one who matters. If it's not affecting me, I'll just do whatever I want. But I do think that once this is in the rearview mirror, we're still going to be taking, I think, infectious diseases more seriously as a society because it's there. But that'll erode like everything else does. The edges will soften on that with time because kids will be born. They won't have known anything about COVID-19. And they'll grow up and they'll join alt-right neo-Nazi parties because they don't realize that it's a real thing. That's I just mixed a metaphor in there in case you didn't notice. But this stuff, the knowledge is generational, and if we don't pass it down, the next generation is just as stupid as the one who screwed it up in the first place. But I'm optimistic that society at large has learned from the last, let's call it the last 4 years. I don't know why I would say that in particular, but
while this has been happening, I've just mindlessly scrolling through Twitter, as I tend to do when you talk on podcasts. Just how when we were chatting, you draw and I just scroll through mindless things so that I can update us with news as it comes through. And I know that this is not brand new news, but I read a tweet about the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation. What is the House Judiciary GOP? Is that that's a real thing, right? Because
I don't understand all of American politics. I'm
this can't be real that the House Judiciary GOP, with a little blue check mark beside it, so whatever that is, that says that it's something official, tweeted, Amy Coney Barrett confirmed, happy birthday at Hillary Clinton. And I'm just kind of what is happening in that tweet? And why are you guys such a-holes? I just don't, I don't think it's Hillary Clinton's birthday. They're being, just rude, right? Is that?
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of oh, no, it actually is her birthday.
Oh, is okay.
Yeah, it's Hillary Clinton's birthday today.
Okay.
All right. Apparently.
I mean, I think they're still just being rude.
guess. Yeah, I think they're still being rude. I feel like they're still just being okay, it makes, it's less out of the blue then. It makes sense that they're being tongue-in-cheek about it. It would be different if it wasn't her birthday and they were this is for Hillary Clinton. But what an a-hole thing. I don't know. It just I don't know. When I read it, it says it's the Twitter for the House Committee on the Judiciary, Republicans. That sounds like a real thing. I don't know. Sorry. America is messed up, man.
Their conservative party has just lost the thread. That's the thing, and that's where I know we've talked about this a few times, and I think I've already clarified this statement a couple of times, but we put out the episode with the title Republicans Suck a few weeks ago, a month ago now, and I know that some people, even a couple listeners, they took offense to that, and the point of that title and the point of us talking about it in the way that we talk about it
actually react in some way
is to get your attention, right? Not in the clickbait way, but of the hey, wake up, because look, I know that some people have conservative values, and I don't agree with most of those conservative values. I would say like 95% of conservative values, but some of them are reasonable beliefs to hold and are absolutely an individual person's right to hold. Like, I think maybe I don't remember if I brought this up on the podcast on this or a different one. But like abortion is a good example of, like, some people believe that life begins at conception, and it's not my right to tell another person that that's wrong. If that's what they want to believe, like, if they not want to, but if that's what they believe, and that's the ideology that they live by, that's a perfectly reasonable thing for them to do, as long as they're not enforcing that belief and ideology on other people, right? That's where we draw the line, right? And that's where it used to be drawn. And it used to be that the right and the left could hold different ideals, but that, like,
it never used to be like that. It never.
No,
has been
but
like
even
that.
But at least in discourse it did, right? Like,
Well,
at
we
least when we
pretended.
talk about it, it did. So you're able to have a conversation about this stuff in a civil way. And now you can't, because now it's just talking points versus talking points, and no one's actual, like, individual beliefs have anything to do with it. It's just, what does the party say that I have to say in order for me to keep this job? Because that's what it's about. It's not about individual beliefs. But for the voters, it is, right? And that's where there's a disconnect, is that, like, hey, if you have voted Republican your entire life and you believe in a certain set of ideals, I hate to tell you this, but your party no longer believes in those ideals the way that you do. They are using them as a way to motivate you to give your money and your support so that they can stay in power, do whatever they want, and whatever they want is basically give themselves tax breaks and contracts and all of these government things so that they can become more rich and take things away from you. So you're just voting to give your money to people like Trump and Mitch McConnell and
this is like
Amy Coney Barrett. That's what you're doing. That's what you're throwing your vote in that hat. It's not for the things that you actually care about. Trump and Mitch McConnell doesn't care about when life starts. He doesn't actually care. He's a hobgoblin. The man is literally rotting from being an evil person. Like, it's
hobgoblin. I love it. Okay, this is perfect because it leads right into the two movies that I watched this weekend that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And one is really old and one is quite new, but they relate to each other perfectly. And the only reason I thought about the first one that's really old is because you just said about the money thing. So I watched Money Monster actually over the weekend, which I'd never seen before. And it's like George Clooney and Julia Roberts, and it's actually directed by Jodie Foster, which I didn't realize. And it's like relatively entertaining. I kind of like stuff about like making TV shows, so anyways, but the whole point of that basically is that it's like money. You don't care what nefarious things are happening when it's making you money, but the second that it stops making you money, people get all up in arms about it, and it's like the Wall Street is absolutely terrible. And anyways, I recommend it. It's a fun little movie that's on Netflix, at least in Canada right now. But the second movie I watched was then The Trial of the Chicago 7. And I don't know, Mike, have you watched this yet?
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list, and it's one of the ones that I really want to watch.
I mean, I can't really spoil something that's like a history, like that's like history, but I didn't know about this. And the coolest part about this, it's not at all in the movie, but afterwards I was interested in was looking up the people, and the guy that Eddie Redmayne, I think is his name,
Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah, plays, obviously real person, who wound up later like going into politics and was married to Jane, Jane Foster? I just said Jodie Foster, so now I've got that in my head.
Jane Fonda?
Jane Fonda, yeah. He was married to Jane Fonda for like 17 years. And I'm kind of like, of course he was, because Jane Fonda is a badass activist, and so was he. And it just was like, just like afterwards for me, like reading through things. But also the biggest thing about this is that like, I have a very precarious relationship with Sacha Baron Cohen, because I fully understand what he's doing with his comedy, but it just like scrapes me the wrong way. Like I just feel it scrapes my skin off. Like I just can't.
Yeah,
like,
I can tolerate Ali G, like that stuff that he did early on.
Yeah.
I have never watched Borat, and I'm never gonna watch Borat because he takes a turn out of the satire into into the grotesque with the character Borat, with like the
I think I've seen parts of it, and it just and it's just
like I get it, like the same as you, like I get it, I get what he's doing, and it gets people's attention, which is good because people are paying attention to things like the fact that Rudy Giuliani is a pervert and should be locked up. So like, but it's good. But
the biggest thing of the trial of the Chicago 7 is that he is outstanding.
He's a phenomenal actor.
So good, and the character that he plays,
he's a super
he's
smart
so
person.
smart. And the dichotomy, the biggest thing that I don't, again, it's like there's some beautiful moments, but what like at its core, like the character that he plays is like Rennie something, obviously somebody very famous that I should know from American history, but I'm not American, so maybe I can't be held too much accountable. But Abby Hoffman, and he is like the leader of the yippies, or right, and like there are these hippie people, and but like it's this like it like the epitome of like the radical left. But in it, they talk critically about what that means to have this figure that is setting up the radical left to forever be characterized by like who they are. Like it's just this beautiful juxtaposition between all these people, because the Tom Hayden character, like the Eddie Redmayne character, there's just this beautiful like two sides to political discourse, and that people can want the same things, but how you present yourself can be manipulated. And I mean, at its core, it's this grotesque manipulation of the judicial system that happened. Like you watch it and you're just like, and it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the lawyer guy, and it's just, I don't know, it's this outstanding cast. And I mean, it's Aaron Sorkin, so every time I watch Aaron Sorkin, I just get the need to watch like more Aaron Sorkin. So literally last night I watched some episodes of The Newsroom, because there's just like a certain like cadence and like repertoire or repartee to like that like interaction. But anyways, I highly recommend it. It's so relevant to like current conversations, and also just for what you're getting at, like everything you're talking about how governments are straight up not there to give any craps about the individual people that it is trying to represent, and that it is about, I mean, I don't even know, we hear about the Vietnam War, right, all the time. It's history. But like watching this and having to like be like, what the heck would it have been like to have to live through the Vietnam War, and who actually supported the Vietnam War way back. Like those people exist today and are supporting things that in 20 years are gonna be laughed out of history for being ridiculous backwards people. And the fact that this entire government existed to uphold something so atrocious, and just the like, I don't know. I mean, again, it's a fictionalized account of something that happened, but essentially at the end, they sort of like imply, actually it's in the very beginning, they sort of like imply the only reason that this trial is even happening is because the Nixon government wanted to send a big FU to the prior government. Johnson? Who was it that was before Nixon?
I don't know. Lyndon B. Johnson, is that who you're saying? Maybe.
That's what I said. I said Johnson. I think it is.
I don't know.
I mean, the thing that's so brilliant too, that I think Americans take for granted, is that nobody else studies your history. Like,
well, certainly not
like
in the way that they do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it's like it bothers me to no end that multiple crosswords expect me to know the 43rd president. I guess that's within the realm of possibility, but like the 23rd president of the United States.
Yeah, that's only a couple.
I know. I should know who the 43rd president. But like that, right? Where I'm like, who the heck knows who the 23rd president of the... I started, because of Hamilton, I started to try to like know at least the first 10 presidents. I'm not very good at it. I know like the first 5. I think. Don't test me on it though. But anyways, highly recommend Trial of the Chicago 7.
Memorizing things is pointless.
Okay,
in 2020.
I mean, unless you're trying to not cheat at crosswords and you believe that you should hold the knowledge in your head.
Sure.
Which a lot of the times I do. I try. I try to hold the knowledge in my head. They just need to ask me less sports questions. There's definitely some things that come up all the time, and you're like, how is this MVP from 1988 very popular?
Whether or not you know the answers to, like, it, look, if the person writing the crossword was equally challenged to come up with all of the clues without looking at any reference material, it would be a fair fight. But it's not, because they're just doing whatever. They like that guy is going like 23rd president of the United States. Okay, I'll put it in. Right? Like that's how they're doing it. They're not as clever as the person who solves the puzzle.
I mean, I don't know. Definitely there are puzzle makers that are so clever.
Yeah, and but that's not the point. Like, how clever they are is not the point. The point is that, like, you're holding yourself up to an imaginary rubric that doesn't exist.
I mean, fair.
That you're expected to know all of this information without looking at any reference. It's like, and that's only by virtue of the fact that we have all of the reference at our fingertips, and we can look up the answers anytime that we want now without even getting up from without even switching devices, right? Yeah. Like, you can be doing the crossword on the same thing that you can look up the answer to the crossword on. I guarantee you that people did not have the same adherence when they had to go to an encyclopedia and hope it was in that edition. Right?
Okay, I do think that this is a very divisive issue, and I would like to know what the listeners think about crossword. Like, what is the threshold for cheating?
I don't think that our demographic is as old as you seem to think it is. I don't think there's as many people doing crosswords in our audience as you would hope.
Like, all of my friends do crosswords. Do your friends not do crosswords?
No, but I don't hang out with a bunch of pretentious artsy farts, so, you know.
Okay, I mean, okay, fine. I don't know. I feel like people do crosswords.
Some people do crosswords, yeah. Some people do crosswords. They're
pretentious artsy farts.
They're generally in nursing homes, but
okay, well, I believe
Crystal's stepdad does the crossword. He's like 75.
Wow. I have a decent. I'm legitimately have enough friends that I have people that I can actually, like, because I consider it not cheating to message my friends and ask them the answers to crossword questions, because I feel like if you're solving a crossword with other people, that you, like, it's cumulative knowledge, which is different. It's not cheating. So we've had, like, multiple conversations about this in our group thread about, like, what constitutes cheating in crosswords. And, like, it ranges the gamut in places that, like, I don't believe that you can't Google anything. Like, I think you should set, like, limits for yourself. Like, I give myself free reign to Google obscure sports things. Mm. Like, if it's, like, not letting me get a corner because I don't know the MVP of 1988, like, football, like, I'm allowed to Google it.
Of 1988 football. The MVP of football. The whole sport. Yeah. The whole sport. Not the NFL. All of the football.
The football.
All of the football. And that includes both American football and European football. European.
But you understand why I'm allowed to Google it. Yeah. So clearly, but it's like, and I have other friends that have similar rules like that. But then I have another friend who literally is like, nope, all you can do is ask people who are in your like real vicinity. But I feel like it's cheating because he has a wife and he can just talk to her about the answers to the crossword puzzle.
I do a crossword to the point that I don't know the answer to something, and then I move on with my life.
I mean, I started doing them a lot when I was back in the Okanagan because there wasn't much to do, and my parents get the newspaper.
Retirement capital of British Columbia, the Okanagan, yeah.
But I do have to say, like, I'm gonna, you know what? This spoopy podcast went somewhere very unexpected. But total shout out, like, Frank A. Longo. He has a crossword every Saturday in the Okanagan newspaper, and it's on the same page as the New York Times crossword. And the New York Times crossword I find too hard, but I'll try it anyways every once in a while. But I love his crosswords. It's always got, like, a little bit of a game to it. And once you figure out the game, like, that's how I know that's how I do it. I, like, sometimes don't finish them because they get too hard and I get frustrated. But I have to finish and solve the, like, puzzle that's in the crossword. And then I feel like if I solve the puzzle, I, like, am fine. So I don't know. I'm curious. Like, how do I don't know. I apologize. I thought more people were involved in crosswords as
I'm probably underestimating the number of people who do the crossword, but and like, because I'm sure that lots of people do crosswords on their phones and stuff.
Yeah.
But
lots of free apps.
I just find it funny, like how you're using it as like a metric to gauge your like as if it's just such a holdover from like a traditional education of like you have to be able to remember all of these facts, otherwise you are never going to do anything in life. And it's like, actually that's not true, because as an adult, if you need to know something,
you can just look it up.
But
nobody, a lot of the times
nobody looks at you and goes like, you know what, you can't be an accountant anymore, you don't know who the 23rd president of the United States is. That doesn't happen.
But
it doesn't actually matter.
No. A lot of the times it's just like expanding your own personal vocabulary,
sure.
Right? Where you're like, oh, I remember, like, what is this word? And then think something. It's just like brain teasers. It's just
but there's a distinct difference between understanding something, having knowledge of something, and rote memorization of facts. Because rote memorization of facts is not knowledge. Is not the same thing. Knowing, that is being able to recite everybody who made Star Wars because you've memorized the credit roll doesn't mean that you understand Star Wars, right? Like if some like you could quiz me and be like, hey, who was the third AD on Empire Strikes Back? I'm like, I don't know. I also don't care.
You clearly don't know Star Wars, Mike.
But like that has no bearing on whether or not I am able to talk about Star Wars in a meaningful way, right? Like that. So that's a factory worker, industrialized education way of thinking, and so it ruffles my feathers, as you can tell. Like I don't like that sort of stuff, because it doesn't actually serve anybody except for, wait for it, all those big old politicians at the top. Those people who are making money, that own all of those companies. The people who own the factories benefit from us being very good at working in factories. But it's not good for the rest of us. I mean,
that's fair. It's like you came full circle on that one. Thank you. Hey, question for you. Is stay the road a phrase that is common? Stay the road?
Stay the course.
I thought it was stay the course. Anyways, it doesn't quite fit.
Does stay the road work?
Yeah, I have the road, and then there's 4 letters missing, and it needs to be a dog command, and the only dog command I'm missing is stay. So I feel like it's stay the road. I don't know. I don't think it is. I'm trying to figure it out. Whatever, it's fine. This crossword has thwarted me, clearly.
It's 4 letters.
And the clue is yet to happen. Something the road. And it's like, again, it's the first 4 letters.
Down the road.
Yet
to happen.
Hey, down, and that's a dog command. Hey, because guess what? D-O are the first 2 letters, but I thought they didn't fit because I thought it was stay. But D-O works for the other things that I've put in there because oboes are a canonical woodwind.
Wow. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a new low. We're doing a crossword on a podcast.
I'm so exciting. I'm going to write it. I'm writing it in right now. But let's talk about some scary movies because we promised.
I think that we're too old to podcast. I think we just hit that point. Let's talk about some.
You know what?
Movies.
I'm going to be so vindicated when people tweet us saying that they also do crosswords, Mike. Or if they don't, they're going to open a crossword this week and they're going to be like, hey. This is interesting.
I will give it to you. Odds are that either Sherston or Sarah Beth do crosswords.
You know what? When I'm saying somebody tweet me, it's really you two. Please, one of the two of them, if not both of them, do crosswords. Really,
but it's unfair because there's a reason why they listen to the podcast.
Hey,
right?
some would say it's
going to our own podcast audience for our very niche podcast, which like our niche isn't even, hey, we talk about geeky stuff. It's, do you agree with the things that we, the two of us, Amanda and Mike, think about geeky stuff? That's who listens to the podcast. So you're kind of all, there's a bit of like a, it's not confirmation bias, but like you're playing with a stack deck for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about spooky movies.
Yay.
So I've been watching a bunch of spooky, scary movies. A bunch? No, not a bunch. A couple of spooky, scary movies. I have to force Crystal into this every October, where it's like I want to watch Halloween stuff. I want to get in the spirit, right? Just like we watch Christmas stuff at Christmas. I want to watch some. You know,
there's lots of campy stuff that you can watch around Halloween that gets you just in the same kind of spirit.
But I'm an adult and I want things with some actual substance. So I don't want to just watch Hocus Pocus 5 times.
Okay, only once a year. Thank you very much.
That's even too much for me.
Okay.
But Hocus Pocus is like once every 5 years for me. I'm good. I get it. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Hocus Pocus, okay? I'm not meaning to throw any shade in the direction of Hocus Pocus. I think it's a fine movie. I do think it has some pacing issues. I don't think it's as good as a lot of people pretend that it is.
It's a movie from the 90s. Of course it's not good.
This is what... There are a lot of movies from the 90s that are very good, even kids' movies.
Okay.
Kindergarten Cop is a good movie through and through. That's not a kid's movie, but that's a movie from the 90s that you might think is...
I've never seen Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, so good. Kindergarten Cop's a great film. Here's the thing about Hocus Pocus.
Okay.
What are you going to compare it to? Because I'll tell you what it's compared to. It's compared to the Olsen twins' Double Double Toil and Trouble TV movie. It's compared to Halloween Town from Disney Channel. It's compared to Ernest Scared Stupid, which personally, for my money, is a better film. But that's just because I like Ernest movies.
Boo.
I recognize that Hocus Pocus is a much better film than Ernest Scared Stupid, but I just have a real soft spot for it. But that's the whole point, is that like I recognize that my feelings about Ernest movies are not universal and they are not objective. They're 100% subjective. The thing about Hocus Pocus is that I think there's not really anything else to compare it to. We don't have another... It's not like at Christmas. When you go like, hey, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Well, here's 10 actual movies about Christmas that I could list for you that are all great movies. Any one of them could be a person's favorite Christmas movie, spanning back from 1930 all the way until last year, right? With Halloween movies, it's like, what is an all ages, fun for the whole family, everybody universally can agree this is a good Halloween movie? There's Hocus Pocus. It's the only one.
Halloween Town.
That's a TV movie. That's a made-for-TV Disney Channel special.
Tower of Terror.
These are not actual films. These are not theatrically released, budgeted films with actual actors and not people who should be doing commercials. Okay, like I if you love Halloween Town, I am happy for you. Don't come at me telling me that Halloween Town is on the same level as
I've
Hocus
never watched
Pocus.
I've never watched Halloween Town, so I'm not the best person to...
but there are people who like they love it, and that's fine. It's cool. Hocus Pocus is the only like legit full-blown Halloween movie. It's the only one that's not inaccessible to somebody.
Casper, come on, Casper.
Casper is not specifically a Halloween movie.
You know what though? But it is in the same sort of bent as No, it is. They straight up have a Halloween party. I disagree, Casper. I win.
Is the plot of Casper about Halloween?
I mean,
does Halloween play an integral role
movie?
in what is happening in the story?
Halloween...
Because Hocus Pocus only happens the way it happens because all of the parents go to the Halloween party. So there are no adults to do anything.
Casper only becomes Casper because there is a Halloween party. And Okay, whatever. But I don't know. I think Casper is in the same bent, and I will say that Casper's probably a better movie than Hocus Pocus because Devon Sawa, like obviously. I don't know.
I don't think you're being objective. Casper does have a Ghostbuster in it, so I'll give you that.
Come on. And I will just want to, and also Bill Pullman, who as a young child, I quite liked Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum because I wasn't a regular child. Like I just like really, I guess because I really liked Independence Day. I think that's probably why it was like my favorite movie. So I was like, Bill Pullman is the best actor. But I do, like, I don't know.
Bill Pullman is an underrated actor. I will agree with that.
I don't know. He was in some of my like faves from the 90s, like While You Were Sleeping. Oh, classic. Anyways, Hocus Pocus, for whatever you feel about it, I will say that they're doing a benefit. Bette Midler has a New York restoration project. Is like one of the charities, or I think it might be her charity. But just so people know, today, if you're listening to the podcast on the day in which it's released widely, they're doing like a stream, and you can totally get like a little mini reunion for the Sanderson sisters, which I think is kind of cool because it kept being talked about forever, and might as well give your money to a cool charity.
That's cool. So, I'm glad that fans of Hocus Pocus, which consists of a lot of people our age,
I dressed as a Sanderson sister last year, and we won our Halloween contest, and it was the greatest thing ever.
I'm glad that fandom is being fed. I would just like to point out that there's not a lot of competition in the Halloween movie, like in the classic Halloween movie. There are a lot of like specials and that sort of thing. Like you got like The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, right? Like you got stuff like that. Right.
But I guess you're right. There's no like Halloween movies because they're all going to be like specials or horror movies, which are not the same as Halloween
so horror movies
right?
are different. Horror movies get into a different space.
Yeah.
I like to watch horror movies specifically at this time of year though, because it's dark, it's cold. Let's stay in and watch a movie. It's and Halloween is the spooky time. So I basically like from September until November, because when we get in November, like we gotta have the dead zone in November where it's not anything, there's nothing special happening, it's not Halloween, it's not Christmas yet. Although I am fine with like if somebody wants to start enjoying Christmas on November 1st, I don't have a problem with that. I'm gonna take a cool down period until after Remembrance Day, until after November 11th. But
the Addams Family.
The first Addams Family film actually opens with Christmas Carolers.
Okay, well,
because the movie was released at Christmas time.
Okay, fine, it's fine.
And the second one is a summer movie because it's about summer camp.
Okay.
So wonderful. we actually just watched Addams Family. There is a Halloween gag in the first Addams Family, isn't there?
Probably.
Because I think
the Witches is getting rebooted too, which I guess is not necessarily a Halloween movie, but it's like, creepy and
yeah. We're so far off topic.
I know.
Let's
go back to Halloween movies.
So we've been watching scary movies. So we watched. Oh man, what did we watch? We watched some good stuff. We watched. The Babysitter, which is the Netflix movie.
Interesting. Is it like an actual horror movie?
Yeah, it's more of a comedy. And this is the thing is that like I want to watch like some actual scary movies. So like the ones that I want to watch are like I want to watch The Fly. I want to watch which The Fly is a little bit, it's body horror, but it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more of like a suspense thriller sort of thing. Jeff Goldblum. Yeah. And Gina Davis. I want to watch. I did watch Beetlejuice the other day, although Beetlejuice isn't scary.
Come on, Beetlejuice is another good like Hocus Pocus-esque movie. Come on.
Yeah, it's not specifically Halloween, but I'll allow it at Halloween. Okay, like if you wanna say like Halloween is the best time to watch Beetlejuice, I 100% agree. I did. I watched it last week. I want to watch Alien. Like the first one, the original one, not when they start turning into action movies, but like the original Alien. Yeah, like there's a handful of movies that I want to watch. Crystal vetoes them almost every time. And so instead we watched Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
we watched, like I said, we watched The Babysitter, and then last night we watched. Man, why am I blanking on the movie that we literally
Happy
watched
Death Day?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
The whole point, because I want to talk about.
Day.
It's one of the only movies that I enjoy that's a horror movie. Because how fun!
So if you'll
like
notice, the thing that is common amongst these three scary movies is that they are not scary, and they are in fact all three comedies. They are comedies that they're subversive horror movies, right? Like they take the horror tropes and they play with them. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with postmodern.
Cabin in the Woods is quite scary,
but it's the postmodern horror movie. It's a comedy.
I mean, yeah.
Cabin in the Woods is to horror what Community is to sitcoms. It is all of the tropes all at once wrapped up in a funny, like in a humorous, not setting, but like a premise, right? Like that's like the whole point of Cabin in the Woods is like, this is why horror movies happen, right? And there's a larger scary thing. It's not actually scary, but like there's a larger fantastical thing that's all wrapped in. Cabin in the Woods is a great movie. It's a fantastic movie, but
if you haven't watched it, highly recommend.
It's not scary.
Okay,
there are some scary elements.
Don't watch it by yourself if you're like me.
I guess. I mean, like,
dude,
it's
meant to be scary, and I get quite freaked out by it.
I highly disagree. It is not meant to be scary.
Okay, well.
There's a reason why the scary, like the quote unquote scary part, is the hillbilly zombies. And it's because it's done to death, pun intended. Like, it is so overdone, and at the time that Cabin in the Woods came out specifically, zombies were at peak saturation. So it was like, what of the horror tropes that we like can we use that's not going to distract from what this movie's actually about, which is like the jokes, right? Like the gag of it all.
But like Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins being like,
they are genius,
just so fantastic.
It is. Look, Bradley Whitford has some of the greatest comedic performances in the history of film and television. Yeah. This is one of his best.
It's
the way he dies in the movie. That's a bit of a spoiler, but I won't spoil.
Oh, it's so good.
Because if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, you need to watch it. The way he dies is so good, and his line delivery is impeccable. It's just like only Bradley Whitford could.
It's so good. I actually do have other, like, before we start talking about Happy Death Day, because I do actually want to hear what you think about Happy Death Day. There's a couple other movies that I have watched that again are scary, but not necessarily. Like Jennifer's Body. Have I talked about that on the podcast before?
You've brought it up a couple of times, but never in detail.
But it's Megan Fox.
Yeah.
And she does such a good job in this movie of being ugly. And I know that sounds like a weird, that sounds weird, but it's literally like a core part of the movie.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you. I'm not gonna stop you. I'm just gonna pause you.
Okay.
Because I want to ask: have you seen the movie Ginger Snaps?
Yeah. Parts of it. We talked about it a lot in school because it was my professor's wife that like did the film. So we chatted about it in one of my classes, and I like watched parts of it. Yes. Jennifer's
Body, most people don't realize, because Ginger Snaps is an indie film. Like it's actually a Canadian film.
Yes.
Jennifer's Body to me is a watered down ripoff of Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps. Oh yeah.
Ginger Snaps is the same thing of like.
No, because Ginger Snaps is about a very specific supernatural element. Like thing that I don't want to like give away, but Jennifer's Body, because I think that it's important that you.
I don't think that it's any. I don't think that you're spoiling Ginger Snaps to say that it's about werewolves.
Okay, well, anyway,
it's in Ginger the like Snaps it's on the poster.
Ginger Snaps is about werewolves, and Jennifer's Body is about demons.
That is, you are arguing semantics.
Okay, well,
that's like saying like an Oreo cookie and an off-brand Oreo cookie are different things.
No. Because the way that they're treated in popular but the way that they're treated in popular culture are very distinct. And that's
to you they are. To you they are, because you care about the subtleties and the nuances of the differences in those stories.
Yes.
But to the majority of people, monster is monster.
No.
Yes, monster is monster. But that's not the point, because it's not about werewolf or demon. That's not what those movies are about.
Yeah, I guess so.
Those are window dressing on stories about the world policing.
Have you seen Jennifer's Body?
Yes, I've seen both of these movies.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm more qualified to talk about this than you are, actually, because I've seen both of these films. Both movies are about the way that the patriarchy, about that society polices women's bodies and the way that they use them. Like, that's what both films are about. Ultimately, and they're also about like female coming of age, and but the demon, like, you could swap demon in Jennifer's Body for vampire and the story would be the same.
Or succubus, or what? Right? Like, it's not.
Well, succubus is a type of demon, but
yes, I know, but it's like not. Anyways, whatever. Okay, I diverged because I just got excited that there was other, like, when I Googled Cabin in the Woods, I was like, hey, there's these other movies. Like, somebody, like, when we were in high school, somebody made me watch The Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. And that is a kind of like comedy horror movie, because it's like, it's not. And so like, I could watch that one as well. Like, I feel like these comedy horrors, but let's talk about, I want to know what you thought of Happy Death Day. Because I've talked about it on the podcast already, I feel.
Yeah. So the first like 15, maybe 20 minutes of it, I was like, Amanda is dumb. I was sitting there going like, I understand that we're going to hit this trope. Like, it's going to do the Groundhog Day thing. And I was kind of like dreading it, because the first 15 minutes is so difficult to sit through, because she's so unlike, and I got it. Like, I was fully aware, right? Like, I was watching this with a critical lens of like, I know we're supposed to be setting up that she's a bad person, because by the end of the story, she's going to have grown from it. Mm-hmm. Right. So we have to set up that she's awful, that she's a sorority. She's not a bimbo, because she's not dumb, but like, she's like I don't know. I'm just going to use the word. She's a bitch, right? Like, you're supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to not like her at the beginning, so that when she gets killed over and over, you're like, good. You deserve it. So do your friends, right? Like, except for your one friend, although that ends up being...
Yeah, don't. Come on.
Well, okay, let's say right now, if you haven't watched Happy Death Day, we're going to talk about spoilers.
Don't spoil Happy Death Day.
Yes, we are.
Then people aren't going to listen to the podcast.
Nobody does that.
Because nobody's watched Happy Death Day.
That's not true at all. It got a sequel, a theatrical release sequel.
I know.
Yeah,
that is just as fun.
We're going to talk about that too, because it was very upsetting to watch the trailer for the sequel right after we finished watching the movie. I'm sure that if you had watched the movie and loved it, and then there was some time, and then they went, hey, they're making a sequel, and then you watched the trailer, you'd be like, oh, cool.
Oh, no. I just watched the movie. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't want to know what it's about. How do you make a sequel to Happy Death Day? Turns out you can, and it actually works. So
okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so like I got it that you know, like they're setting up all this stuff, but it's not until she starts loosening up a little bit and it starts
like leaning
to get
into
fun.
it, and how weird it is, right?
Yeah, it's really like the moment when she comes out naked, where she does the walk naked.
Yeah, that's the
that you're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty fun, but before that, it was rough going for me. It was like, oof, man, like so paint by numbers. But yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's a good movie. It's definitely not like gonna make any of my top 10 lists.
No,
like it
but
does
it's just
for
like
you,
a fun, cute, like. Okay, it only does because I don't watch any horror movies whatsoever, and so the fact that I can be like, here are some fun, kind of scary movies that I enjoy. Like,
I don't, I'll tell you what ruffles my feathers the most about it, and then we just talk about the good stuff. I am really sick of the self-insert Seth Cohen character. That every writer puts into their movie, like every one of these like lonely Judd Apatow, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know who's the real hero of this story? It's the
nerdy
quiet
dude.
nerd that you ignored in high
Yep.
school. That's who it is.
But,
That's
okay,
who you should fall in love with.
but I
And
think
look,
it's
I don't disagree, because I think that the quiet nerd from high school was a really cool guy that if you had gotten to know him, you would have invited him to your parties. But and you should definitely listen to his podcast, and you should buy some of his art from his Instagram account, because he spent a lot of time by himself on Friday and Saturday nights drawing, and that's why he's good at it. And you owe him at least that, because you were out having fun and he was by himself.
okay.
I get it, but I think that as that guy who would write himself into a movie, or who would have before I started realizing how tired of a trope it is and how obnoxious it is, it's just like, it's kind of sad. Like,
Okay,
at a certain
so
point, it's
here's-
pathetic that
so you're
character
talking
is
about-
in every movie.
You're talking about like the main guy, right? Like Israel Brassard.
Yeah.
I just have a thing. So he's in To All the Boys I Loved Before. And there is the best burn in the world. And this is like, I just really love him in this movie. I think he does a good job. And it's because because as not being that nerdy guy from high school and being able to relate more to the girl tropes because of sexism or whatever. But like, I kind of appreciate the nerdy boy like trope in movies, because it allows it something to be relatable to me, because I did actually notice those nerdy boys in school, right? Like, where it's a little bit where I'm kind of like, I can't get into stuff that is starring Robbie Amell, because I'm like, why would Robbie Amell ever talk to that girl? That's unrealistic, and
Yeah.
I don't believe
Robbie
it
Amell
immediately.
is in The Babysitter, and I think that you would enjoy him very much.
Oh, I mean, here's the thing. I quite enjoy Robbie Amell. But if I get to, like, in terms of, like, the tropes that get written into movies,
for sure.
I feel like, but so in To All the Boys I Loved Before, he's one of the main guys, and obviously the other main guy is way better, and I like him more. But there's like it's a love triangle. And so this guy at one point in time is like, hey, back off from her. And the guy says to him, he's like, what are you going to do about it, Bon Iver? And I just think that that's like the best like hipster burn that you can give to like somebody that thinks they're cool. Anyways, I don't know. Do you listen to Bon Iver?
No.
Like, oh.
I know that like he's on one of the songs on the new Taylor Swift album,
Anyways,
and I hate
it's
that
just,
song.
it's so whiny, and I love it. Like, there's a time and a place for Bon Iver. Don't get me wrong, but I just like. So, anyways, I have a soft spot for that.
I don't listen to any current music though. Yeah, I listen.
I don't think it's current. I feel like I listened to it like years ago.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, even that, like, I'm still.
Yeah.
I just listened to John Mayer albums from 10 years ago.
I actually just started re-listening to Jack Johnson, because, okay, here's the thing, because, you know, of all of the stuff with me, like, loving Schitt's Creek recently, and then all I've been listening to is Noah Reid, and he does a very specific kind of acoustic music that I've just listened to the same 4 albums over and over and over and over again. But anyways, it's making me fall back in love with my, like, my early acoustic loves, or, like, more in that genre, and Jack Johnson, Banana Pancakes, man. It's one of my favorite. That reminds me of being a little angsty teenager. So.
Yeah, that was when I met Crystal. That was one of her go-tos.
I mean, I love how much me and Crystal are the same person. It makes me happy. There's just so many things.
It's enough crossover to make me uncomfortable from time to time. That's definitely the case. Yeah.
Okay, but this is very tangential, but like there's like a thing where it's very similar to where I am very similar to one of my like producing buddies' wives. Like me and her get along so well because we have the same things in common. And one of the things is that I just feel like there's certain personalities that just like you need somebody to check yourself. And so what I really like is like you call it sometimes ganging up. But I don't think it's necessarily ganging up. I think it's that there's like a certain thing that you're like, it's like the idea of like personalities that like clash, that like it depends on the type of personality, but sometimes they just like have really good friendships. And I don't know. I think that's, I don't know. I like pride myself on that with most of my like male friends, that I feel like I have a lot in common with their female partners, because I think that great minds think alike and find interesting things to harp on at the other people. So anyways, that's my random tangent. I just think that I mean there's something about friendships that like there really is, you have to get along in some capacities, and even if you and the person that you're friends with don't have everything in common, there's obviously something there. And so I just like it when you find that like the people that they surround themselves are like you. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to be like the person. You just have to be like the people that they also like. Right?
I don't generally actually want to talk to people who agree with me on everything. Like that's a very boring conversation to have.
That's fair.
How can I be right if the other person isn't wrong? That's the dynamic there. That's at play there. But no, that's just me being flippant. But yeah, no, it's like the I don't know, just surrounding yourself with people who agree with you is, you have to have the same ideologies. I think you have to care about the same sorts of things. Yeah. But why you like Star Wars and why I like Star Wars are not exactly the same. And that
very different.
Leads to good conversations. So,
yep.
I mean, like, most of it in the vein of, like, you could be a better Star Wars fan, but...
Thanks. Thanks. I had a...
Sorry, go ahead.
I just, no... It ended with a weird conversation about TARDIS sheets. I'm deciding against it. But there was definitely a moment this last week where somebody was like, I love how much of a nerd you are. And it took me like a good 24 hours to be like, oh, I was probably talking too much about my TARDIS sheets. Like that, like what a toddler am I? That I just was like, I totally had my TARDIS sheets on for the last like 3 weeks. And because they're really they're like really soft and I just like love them as sheets. But then I realized that that's like 12-year-old boys sleep with like graphic sheets and I am a grown woman. And then I had this whole thing where I was like, why do you
who are you trying to impress?
Nobody. I mean, that is the thing where it's kind of like, it's just for me. But that's the thing is that like, because that never becomes a thing.
Especially right now, like nobody is seeing your sheets, right?
I know.
Like,
yeah. So it's like, but that's the thing. But that's the thing is that usually I get to live in my nerdy little cone of silence because nobody ever comments on it. But I guess I had been like talking enough about my TARDIS sheets, and people were like, "Why are you talking?"
I mean, like, I think at a certain point, if you're talking about, I think if you were talking about your sheets in general for too long, I would be like, all right,
people would be like, "What's
settle
going on?"
down. But the fact that they have TARDI on them,
TARDIS,
yeah, I mean it's a low hanging fruit, easy target.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's fair.
Let's get back to Happy Death Day. You wanted to talk about this.
I did, and we went on a very beautiful.
We've
tangent.
done more than a full episode, so right now I'm just humoring you. It's usually the other way around.
I'm done.
But yeah, so I did like it, but there were some like you get, by the time you get to the end, like she's gone through this whole arc, right? Mm-hmm. And you get like her Buffy moment, where she gets all geared up. Like she's gonna go out and slay a vampire.
Yeah. I love
she literally looks like Buffy the Vampire Slayer she goes out to do this. Her plan is severely flawed, that she's gonna go put a knife to the throat of a cop and tell him to run and go get help. It's like, I get that, like, he's not gonna listen to you, but also, like, why don't you just wait until right when he's about to get killed and then save him? Why isn't that your plan? But anyways,
wouldn't be as dramatic.
Like, all of that, like, up until that moment, and then like she makes the choice to reset the loop one more time because if she kills him there, then the what was his name? I can't remember his name in the movie.
Carter?
Yeah, Carter will stay dead, right? So she does it, and then they figure it out or whatever. But then she does it, like she thinks that she wins, but then there's a good twist at the end, and I liked it. Like I thought that the
twist was great.
The twist is super good.
Like and so again, I don't want to we won't ruin the twist for you on this, but it's just it's fun, like because it is like that one last sort of like the movie's going along and you're kind of like, this is what I expect it to be, and then it just in the very end turns out to be something different, and you're like, oh, that was
but fun. So then we finished the movie and I was like, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that. That was good. I would have rather watched Alien, but it's all right. I'll just watch it by myself at some point in the next week. she has to watch American Werewolf in London with me on Saturday. That's I've made a lot of concessions over the last month because that one's not moving. That's immovable.
I feel like I've seen one of them, but I don't know if I've seen American Werewolf in London or American Werewolf in Paris.
Have you seen one with an awful puppet werewolf or awful
no,
CG?
I'm definitely now looking that there's a difference of about 20 years in the films. It's Paris. Definitely the Paris one that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. American Werewolf in London is my favorite horror movie.
Oh no, but I remember liking this one because Tom Everett Scott isn't American Werewolf in Paris.
I am one of the few people who will tell you that like American Werewolf in London is my favorite horror movie, and then also say I really like American Werewolf in Paris, but I like American Werewolf in Paris because I like him, right?
I mean, that's
the lead singer of the Oneaters. No, not the lead singer, the drummer of the Oneaters.
Really?
That's the Wonders, that thing you do. Have you ever seen the movie That Thing You Do?
No, I have
Tom
not
Hanks
seen
movie?
that thing.
No.
No.
He's the drummer in that. That's like the first movie that I remember like clocking him. And so from then on, it's like he's always that guy. He's in 13 Reasons Why as one of the dads, and it's always weird to me because I'm like I always think of him as like in his 20s.
I've never seen him old before, and I'm looking through like these images now, being like, oh.
Anyways, so we finish the movie, and we get to, and I say like, oh, the Happy Death Day to You is on Crave right now, so like let's check out the trailer and see if we want to watch it at some point. And it's like I'm curious how they do a sequel to this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very nicely wrapped up.
Yeah,
everything is very nicely wrapped up, happy ending, everything, right? Mm-hmm. It's the whole point. If there's no happy ending, then it's just a slasher movie with no heart. So we watched the trailer, and the trailer is basically like, yeah, she didn't win. And that after having just finished the movie where you're like, she won, she did it, she solved the thing, and she's got everything that she deserves. And
so it's, I mean, do you want me to like spoil Happy Death Day to You to make it like less? Don't spoil
it, because I'm sure that there's like a twist or something.
There's not. You find out very quickly.
Yeah.
So the thing that I love the absolute most when they can do this in movies, and this is what they do, it's the same cast as Happy Death Day that they've put in Happy Death Day to You. But what they've done is they've taken one of the secondary characters and made him a main character in the second movie. And the movie basically completely revolves around that. I don't know. I just think it's like, but they now have to solve, like, I mean, the trope of Happy Death Day Happy Death Day is that she has to like die multiple times. I mean, you're going to make a sequel that's going to have the same kind of trope. So yes, but they add like stakes and consequences, and like the shtick is different. Like it is a little bit like there's a different kind of threat to her. I don't know. Did they get into the science of it? Like they don't talk about the science part of it in the trailer.
No, not in the trailer. No.
The thing that I mean, again, it for other people it probably ruins it because people are like, I don't care. I just give me a horror movie. But I quite like that they totally explain what is happening in the second one. Because in the first one, they don't explain what's happening. Like, you don't explain why she gets to wake up after she dies. They don't explain that. But in the second one, they totally explain why it's happening to her again. Like, they explain the science of what happened, of, like, what's happening to her. So, which I think is just kind of fun.
Halfway through the movie, I assumed that it would have to do with her mother, right? That, like, that somehow like her mother was basically like her mother that had died was like protecting her, sort of thing, like giving her all of these chances to come back.
And
solve it, right?
That's like a beautiful way to like read into the first one, sure.
Yeah, because so much of it was about that relationship, right? Like that's ultimately, I think that is what that movie is about her reconciling with the death of her mother, right? So and then like and fixing the rift between her and her dad, and being less of a bitch to everybody because she's upset that her mom died, right? So yeah, I thought that it would eventually connect into that. It didn't, but it didn't matter. It didn't like ruin
it doesn't. Yeah, no, but it like, I mean, that kind of makes, that's kind of cute and makes sense. But there's enough that, like, again, if you like what happens in Happy Death Day, like if you find it entertaining, I find that the second one is like, it's the same thing in the same way that, like, my parents were really mad when I made them watch The Good Place. My dad was like, the second season is just the same as the first season. And I'm like, Dad, that's how seasons of things work. Like, you find something that works and then you just, like,
don't they watch a lot of procedurals?
like, I know. I'm kind of like,
what season of
Dad.
CSI is it? And it's like,
I know. I mean, to be fair, my dad doesn't choose to watch those. He just is accosted into, like, hey,
Gotcha.
This is what's on television. But, so, I mean, obviously don't watch Happy Death Day 2 if you don't like the general trope of the first episode or first movie. But it's like, it gets more into it. I find it semi-entertaining. It's much weirder and way less scary. To the point where I think I could watch Happy Death Day to You by myself, whereas for Happy Death Day, I feel like I made Nate come over for the last, like, 10 minutes of it where I was like, things are happening. People are dying.
But the last 10 minutes is the least scary part.
Okay, well, maybe last half hour. Whatever. After she does the naked walk and when things start to be like, consequences of dying. And then you're like, don't die anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess I'm just cynical and watch too many movies, but I just watch something like that and go like, well, obviously she's gonna, like I said, like, I clocked it like 10 minutes in. I'm like, she has to be mean at the beginning, otherwise she has nowhere to grow. If she's a good person, then we're just upset that she keeps getting killed.
Of course.
Right? It's just because it is Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
That's the best part of the movie
is
is the last line when he's like, it's like Groundhog Day. And she's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
He's like,
it's so great.
Bill Murray?
Yeah. Come on.
It's
like,
a good moment.
I mean, that's like the easiest way to describe Happy Death Day. It is literally like Groundhog Day, but it's like,
I mean, it's not even that is literally what it is. It's not like, it just is. It's Groundhog Day, but it's a horror movie.
But it's great.
So
talking about horror movie, like, just like to end off things for like other horror movies that I have a very soft spot for Scream 2, because it was one of the only horror movies I ever bought on VHS as a child. And I remember like watching it with a friend, and then I think I watched Scream 2 before I watched Scream 1, so that was fun as well. But so those kinds of movies, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer, like the 90s horror movies, that there's something like to those tropes. I did watch those, you know, because when you're like a teenage girl and you have sleepovers, you watch scary movies, much to your chagrin. I could never participate in the seances, though. I just felt like that was messing with things that should not be messed with. But I think I was the only person in my friends. Board? Oh yeah, I was the only person in my friend group that I would literally go downstairs and hang out with the parents, because I was like, I cannot be part of this seance that you guys are trying to have. Like,
first off, that's literally how The Exorcist starts. That's how she gets possessed by the devil. So look, I'm not saying that I believe if you play with a Ouija board that you'll get possessed by the devil. I think that if that were the case, a lot of kids would be buying, like Milton Bradley I guess Milton Bradley doesn't exist anymore. Hasbro makes a Ouija board. Like, it's like, but here's the thing. There are a few things I'm never going to do in my life. I'm never going to get laser eye surgery.
Okay.
Because there's like a 0.05% chance that you'll end up with like the eyes that like they always feel like they're burning. Well, guess what? I'll wear glasses. I'm good. Yeah. I'm fine. It's not that big of a deal. Unless I get to the point where I literally can't see and it's the only thing that they can do. Like the potential risk has to vastly outweigh the reward, right? And for me, it doesn't. It's like, okay, I got to wear glasses. Who cares? I look better in them anyways. If I did laser eye surgery, I would still wear glasses because I don't look good without them. They just wouldn't have a prescription. I'd be able to wear whatever sunglasses I want. I'd be able to pick them up off the rack. That would be nice. I'm never going to do it. If there is a 0.00001 chance that playing with a Ouija board is going to unleash some sort of ghost in my home, or B, allow a malevolent spirit, or worse, a demon into my body, I'm not going to take that chance. I'm just not. It's not worth it. Yeah. Those are There's no control Z on either of those things if they happen for real. And I firmly believe in the storytelling device, like crossing the threshold. Life is normal until it's not. And so that means that from my perspective, in the reality that I live in, I am one inciting incident away from learning that aliens are real or demons or whatever, right? Like monsters.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that is always like, hopefully if you're the main character, it means that the second that you enter that world, then you also realize that you have special gifts. So that's when your mutant powers activate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, puberty was a long time ago for me, so I don't think I'm getting mutant powers. I'm not going to be able to shoot beams out of my eyes or heal instantly anytime soon. But you know, there are other stories that still apply when you're in your mid-30s. Far less, but anyways, like so there's a balance there because I believe in that. But unfortunately, like there just aren't a lot of real life stories of exciting things like that happening to people. That's why we make them up. But they like, I believe in a higher power. I don't, at this point in my life, I don't like to label it because I feel like that's reductive and gets you into trouble, like arguing about when life starts, right? Like and listening to 2,000-year-old books is not a great way to live your life. Listening to them, reading them and taking knowledge from them is fine. But
you probably should learn from people 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
but,
I mean like taking like commandments from 2,000-year-old books.
Oh, you know what I just found out? That King James, like of the King James Bible, was super gay. And that made me very happy. Like, there's a lot of implication that he totally had this boy toy that he just kept, like, promoting higher and higher and higher. Uh-huh. And then he, like, straight up was, like, used like, religion as a cover where he's like, hey, I know you guys feel that I'm very close to this guy, but I just want to, like, let you know that Jesus was also close to this guy. And so, therefore, like, I have a pretty holy relationship with this dude. Do you think that perhaps some of the negative feelings that he was having about needing to keep that part of his life secret maybe might have colored some of the passages in regards to whether or not certain things are abominable? Yeah. You would think that it has a core, into like how the Bible is. Okay. I mean,
like if you're going to do any biblical study, the King James version is the last version you should read. I personally prefer the New Living Translation, NLT, which is it's one of the more recent ones. It's not that recent at this point now, but it's...
Oh, I also just really quickly, I didn't fact check this. I found it on Pinterest. I just want everybody to be really clear.
I'll tell you, like, it is fact checked that the King James version is awful, and a lot of the bad stuff that gets done in the name of Christianity is because of the King James translation.
It's because of bad translations in general in life.
Yeah,
I feel like there's so many things that get mistranslated, even in modern day with people talking to one another. Oh, one of the most brilliant things, bringing it all the way back to the trial of the seven, there's this beautiful moment in which people connect about semantics, like about how people write and how they're interpreted. And it's this beautiful, I don't know, if you've watched the trial of the seven, you'll know the moment I'm talking about. It's when Abby and Tom, like when Tom is like, oh my God, I meant our blood, right? Like it's just this beautiful thing. And Abby's like, yeah, it's because the way that you talk doesn't get interpreted the way that you want it to. And it's just this beautiful thing where it's like, you can create chaos and havoc by like the nuance of your speech. Imagine what happens when you translate documents that were created by who knows who 2,000 years ago in languages that, anyways. Yes, sorry to not rant. Let's not rant too much about the Bible.
No, we can rant tons about the Bible because it's I have no problem with that. It's when we rant about stuff that we don't know anything about, that's where I feel like we don't get into trouble, but where we should maybe pull back a little bit. I was a youth leader for 5 years. I know this stuff.
You know the Bible. Yeah. I mean, I think the Bible had stories about before Jesus and after Jesus.
That's a very, very surface level understanding of it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. and there was a guy named Noah, and there was a flood. Turns out God's pretty mean and vindictive.
Yeah, I mean, like so
Old Testament God. I don't know. You know what's beautiful as somebody that like doesn't connect to specific religions?
Yeah.
It's brilliant to look at the difference between Judaism and Christianity.
Well, I was just about to say those stories from the Old Testament, the Old Testament, they're stories. And if you speak with a rabbi or any Jewish scholar about the Torah, which is the Old Testament, I mean the Torah is more than just the Old Testament as Christians understand it, but if you talk to them about that stuff, they will tell you like there's some historical stuff in there. I mean like the story of Hanukkah, right? Like it's a historical thing. It happened but most of it is absolutely considered storytelling. It's allegory. It's because it comes from an oral tradition, right? Before the Jews escaped from Egypt, they weren't allowed to write things down. So everything was an oral tradition. And when things are an oral tradition, they're not written down. They morph over time. And so Jews have an understanding of religious text with that context. Christians, because they look at it from the perspective, and when I say Christians, I'm in this context, I'm mostly talking about American post-colonial Christians, so evangelicals, to be brief, I guess. They look at it from a literalist perspective, right? So the
Amy Coney Barrett's of the world, if you will.
Well, yeah, and she's an originalist. That's a different thing. She looks at the Constitution, and it's not meant to be interpreted. It's meant to be applied exactly as the founding fathers wrote it. But literalists, when it comes to the Bible, they consider the Bible, and I have friends who feel this way, it's the word of God, and the people who wrote the Bible were his instruments. So they literally held the pen, or in these instances the quill, for God. They did not write the Bible. The apostles did not write the Bible. God wrote the Bible through them. Therefore, everything in the Bible is the direct word of God passed from him to us. And that's where you get the broken ideology of evangelical right-wing Christianity, because that's not the case. It's never been the case, because more than half of that book is the Old Testament, and the Old Testament is a lot of made up stuff. It's a lot of...
Oh, interesting. I guess that would not necessarily reconcile with itself.
It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. It's a contradiction. And on top of that, so much of what Jesus was speaking about specifically was contextual to that time and that place, and he talked about the issues that were problems in that time and that place. So and then you see with some of the Gospels, let's call out Paul because he shouldn't be included in the Bible, in my opinion, because he just made all of his stuff up. He, from my perspective,
I do want to say I'm very sorry. That was very facetious of me because I genuinely don't know who you're talking about. So I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I have no idea if that's controversial or not.
It is because a lot of modern doctrine comes from Pauline theology, which is the book of Paul, his writings. Paul was a guy named Saul. He was not a great guy, and I owed a lot of people money, had a lot of problems. Nobody really liked Saul that much. So then one day he hears about Christianity. And this is my interpretation of it. This isn't how it's actually written. But he hears of Christianity, this thing that's happened. It's not even called Christianity at that time. It's called the Way. They're followers of the Way. It was the Way of Christ, right? He hears about this and realizes that there's a really great opportunity. And so in my opinion, Paul was a con man. wasn't holy in any respect. And he decided that he was going to adopt these ideologies and turn this small group of followers into a church, into a religion. And so like we really only have Christianity now because of a lot of the stuff that he did. And so there's a lot of stuff of him writing to there. He has letters to the Corinthians, which are not a big chunk, but a chunk of the New Testament, where he's basically telling the people in Corinth, which is in Greece, that they need to like settle down because their Corinth was a rowdy place. I don't know if you remember that from The Adventures of Young Hercules. Because there was the one guy that was his friend. You watched that show. You have to have. It was Ryan Gosling.
Which one?
Young Hercules.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. You remember his buddy that like he was always arguing with that had the black leather vest, and he was like, "This is Corinthian leather." So they always talked about Corinth on that show, because Corinth was like it was. I
mean, I know place. Corinth for other things.
Yeah. But Corinth was like a rough place, right?
Yeah.
And people just did whatever they want. So there's a lot of sodomy. There was a lot of
Corinthian leather making.
Yeah, there's a lot of making of Corinthian leather, fine Corinthian leathers. There is just all that sort of. So Paul was like writing to them, being like, "Hey, you guys are taking it a little bit too far. You need to ease it back a little bit, because the people who make the rules are starting to look in your direction." And then started like enforcing stuff and bringing like these weird interpretations of Christian ideology into it, and and there's stuff at the time of like women should be quiet. That's Paul. That's his writing. Jesus never said anything about it. It's very after the fact stuff. This is all stuff that now
Paul guy growing on me.
Yeah, he's a real piece of work. So when you really look at what he wrote and the fact that he never actually met Jesus, he claims to have been on the road.
Oh.
And Jesus came to him after he had died. So Jesus has been dead for a while now, right? Like he died. Everybody else is off doing their thing, spreading the gospel, because they actually knew the guy, and they saw him after he died because he rises from the dead, right? So like they're spreading the good word, and Paul hears about this and makes up a story, in my opinion, that he met Jesus on the road, and Jesus told him that he needed to make the church. And so then he goes out and does this stuff, and it's like, anyway, so that when you take that and you realize that's like really the roots of the Christian church, and you take the fact that the Torah, which was meant to be a collection of allegories to teach lessons to kids, and for discussion and debate, because in Jewish faith, discussion and debate, much like what we do here on the podcast, it's funny how that works, how that's like genetically in me, is like it's a core part of that faith. It's like you don't just take it for granted. You don't just like, somebody doesn't just tell you that this is the way that it is. If you're a kid and you go to a rabbi and you ask a question, they'll answer it with a question, right? Like they'll be like, well, why do you think that? Why do you feel that way? Why are you questioning this? What do you think you're supposed to learn from this story, right? They take that, Christians take that, and they go, Jonah was swallowed by a whale. It happened. It happened for real, you guys. So the whole point of this is that you said Noah was a guy. Noah was not a guy. Noah did not exist. The earth did not flood for 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, but you know what I love? I mean, sorry, we have podcasted way too late, and
it's time to wrap it up.
But the most beautiful thing about stories like that is that there's lore of floods and three-headed dogs, and like there's certain things that find their way into religions that you're like, I betcha 5,000 years ago it rained for a real long time. Yeah. Like, I just think that there was probably something that happened.
It's a mix of things, right? Because the point of the story of Noah has nothing to do with the animals. It has nothing to do with the things that people associate with that story, right? It's two things. Noah had incredible faith. He was told by God, build this ship because there's going to be a flood. It was ridiculous. Everybody made fun of him. He did it anyways. right? So that's one of the lessons there, is that sometimes when you know the right thing to do, you just have to have faith in that, in spite of everybody telling you that you're stupid for saying so, right? Or doing whatever you're doing. And I think that that's a good lesson to learn. I think that it needs to be learned with context and not just like, it's not blind faith, but it is like, he had reason. Like, God spoke to him through an angel. He had a reason to believe in this. If we're talking within the world of the story, right? The other part of that story is, people focus on Gomorrah as like the sodomy and the debauchery and all of that stuff. Those are like the easiest examples to go to, but the reason why God in the story wipes Sodom and Gomorrah off the face of the earth is because the people were not living up to their potential in a way. Like, that's sort of like the easiest way to boil it down. Like, that's the lesson. It's not that guys were having sex with guys. That's not the problem. And that's what a lot of Christians will tell you, is that like, oh, they were sodomizing one another. The problem was that like, people were lazy. They weren't like, people would rather drink and party than live up to their responsibilities. Right. So Noah was like the odd man out in that town, like in that community. And so he was called out for it. And then that gets into the whole faith thing of like him maintaining his ideals in the face of everybody else being like, why don't you just have a drink and relax? Right? Like, that was the problem with Sodom and Gomorrah, not that men were sleeping with men, right? So it's like there's all of these weird interpretations and bad lessons that come from this stuff, and then people learn things in Sunday school, and Sunday school focuses on the animals 2x2. Who cares about the animal? There's no lesson in that.
Unicorns care. Well, it means don't forget important animals, or people will be crying for many years to come.
Yeah. In mythology, unicorns are actually kind of bad, but that's okay.
You know what? Yeah, it's all good.
but like that's the whole point, is that like, there really isn't a lesson in that modern teaching of Noah unless you get into the context, unless you get into the actual conversation about it. You do some actual like theology with it. But people have taken that story and they attribute it, like, because then there is a lesson with the unicorns, right? With the song, right? Of like, the unicorns were, and that's the, like, it ties back into what I was just talking about. The unicorns were too busy screwing around to get on the boat. They missed the boat, and that's why there are no unicorns, right? Like, because they didn't hold up their responsibilities, right? Like, they were busy having fun and goofing off, and it didn't pan out well for them. So that's the lesson. And that's exactly what I just said. That's the lesson in that story. So people get there eventually with some of this stuff, but don't take the Bible literally. That's, I think.
Thank you for this Bible lesson in our spooky.
I told you I was.
What better way to wrap up our spooky Halloween edition of the Thunderquack podcast?
There's a lot of scary stories in the Bible.
Bible lesson. I don't know. Those lions seem scary, so. All good.
Oh, look, hey, most of the stories in the Old Testament, like, as you just brought up, like Daniel and the lion's den, again, what saves him is faith. Yeah, most of the time it's just
you
faith.
Think that there's a Bible story that's not about faith. I feel like the one thing I expect of my Bible stories would be. Anyways, have legitimately gone back to my crossword now, so I feel like we're done. We're done.
Okay. Well, that's it for the episode then.
Yay.
Yeah, we'll be back next week, and when we come back, like, let's just accept our fate right now. We're going to talk about the it's too late. We are going to talk about the Mandalorian next week, and the title for next week's episode will be some sort of pun involving the Mandalorian.
Hey, I love it.
So maybe good. That'll just be the title. It'll just be the Mandalorian.
I like it.
Yeah.
I better watch the Mandalorian.
Yeah, you better watch the Mandalorian before next Monday. Cool. Well, thank you guys
I'll be
for
podcasting
listening.
from Tofino. It'll be good.
Man, what an episode. Jeez Louise.
I know. Thanks.
If you made it all the way through, you know what to say. Hashtag. It's still the same. It's still the same hashtag.
I love it so much.
The arrow might be dead, but the hashtag never.
I think it makes a difference when we have fun talking. You know what? Also, we like knew what we were talking about, so I feel like we came in, and the problem is that we never actually have things to talk about. So when there's actually things to talk about, we talk about all the stuff we would have talked about had we not had things to talk about, and then we're like, oh yeah, we have to talk about the thing that we were supposed to talk about.
Yeah. So. We didn't really talk about it that much, but that's okay. Thank you for listening. I'm trying to wrap this up, Amanda.
I'm sorry.
We'll catch you next week.
Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access, ad-free episodes, and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more